Rapping about views on the mic, I don't like that. Listen to flows that I wrote and you might catch cold and suppose if you chose to a light clash. You'll be at home quicker than a light flash. Try don't stop, give dive then fight back. I will make you give your mic back. Power will drive you like a linebacker. Battle me can't get your time back. Military visionary quicker than a big freight. It is very everything, it should be a blitz. So you belittling battles. Here is your obituary, then a buried, then a severed. Everybody said everybody battling. Damaging, panic and spreading their parent. They're managing their power with practice. So don't give me that.
Just a tiny bit. Oh, and I'm going to have to remember to keep looking this way today because, as you can see, we're back. Hello. Hello. I was going to say it's nice to see your beautiful faces. However, I cannot see any of your beautiful faces. I can only see the camera and my Deadpool poster that is behind the camera and the mess that I created that is also behind the camera because I was scurrying to get this set up because, as you can see, guys, you need to fund me. I'm going to put a GoFundMe link in the description down below. You guys need to buy me a house. I need a house that has a separate room for my setup because this having a bedroom / studio, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So yeah, I'm going to put a GoFundMe in the link down below, and you. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Project Podcast, a podcast without introduction. I'm your host, Project R, and today we're back with a camera. We're back with a camera because of this. Haha, see? Those of you listening on audio only didn't know the movie magic that just occurred. However, if you're watching YouTube, shout out to you because you know the movie magic that just occurred. This is the cycle of trauma, and we're going to be talking a lot about the cycle of trauma today. I also need to create the cycle of trauma because as I'm recording this, I don't have the diagram that I've just pointed out. However, by the time I finish and edit this, it will be there. So that's why the green screen is there. So yes, the cycle of trauma we're going to be talking about today. Also, my notes are right here on the monitor. So I'm going to be like looking to my right, to your left, maybe. I don't. Yeah. Anyway. The reason I want to talk about the cycle of trauma is because the podcast I recorded last, I don't think I'm going to upload it. I'm going to double check if I did or I didn't. But as I was talking about it, first of all, I had no notes on it, so it was messy anyway. You guys know how I get when there's no notes. And also, it brought up a conversation that needs to be addressed. Because... So in the last one, I was talking about the worst sexual experience I've ever had. And, you know, long story short, it wasn't good. She wasn't feeling it. And, you know, it ended kind of awkwardly because she then, anytime I see her, she's moving a bit weird and whatnot. And, so yeah, anyway, so I recorded that. And then a day later, I met up with an old friend. And she came to me and said, you know, I'm really sorry for what's happened years ago. And I was like, don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah. Thinking she was talking about something completely unrelated. Completely unrelated. So yeah, so she's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. So and I'm going to use names here because I am in no position to be protecting anybody at this current moment in my life. Because nobody, the person who I'm going to name drop, I can see that. I've just looked down and noticed I've put my tripod on top a packet of tissues. Hopefully I remember to take a picture so I can pop it in the video behind me. So I was wondering, like, why is it so slanted? I've had to like twist the camera, the little clamp. I've had to twist it thinking that it was just off, but really the tripod is off. And I hadn't realised. So yes, the person in question who has falsely accused me of what they have falsely accused me of has not come forward to me. So the fact that you're not willing to protect my own mental state, I'm not willing to protect yours. That's just how life goes, I'm afraid. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. If you don't scratch my back, I'm annoyed because I moved my back scratcher before recording, so I can't pull up my back scratcher. In fact, I can pull up my back scratcher. 1 second. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. If you don't scratch my back, there's going to be problems. And now there's problems. Because when I was told this piece of information, this juicy piece of information, I didn't know how to process it. I couldn't process it because this was a situation that I've only read about, that hopefully you've only read about, you've only seen, you've only witnessed on Twitter or on Instagram, or it made the news. And I'm talking about false sexual assault accusations. Yeah? This is what we're talking about today. And it is that serious. False sexual assault accusations are fucking disgusting. So what's happened is, years ago, I was at a party with a friend who were at uni. I can tell you the uni as well. Like, this is how clearly I remember the situation, right? We were at, it was Sussex University, not Brighton. There's Brighton and Sussex. It was Sussex University. We were at Sussex University on campus. My friend had a common student accommodation there. And me and another friend, a female friend, was staying over because there was this party, Halloween party. We were at the Halloween party, we were drinking, obviously it's a party, we were a bit drunk. Me and the friend are in a room alone, and she just walked out the shower. So I'm like, yeah, come on, you know what I mean? Half the job is done, you get me? And let me finish in it, because without context and with the way the world is, everything is gonna sound a bit predatory until you tell you until I tell you exactly what's happened. So she's come out the shower. I'm like, you know, what are you about to get into? So we start touching each other and whatnot, and she's a bit like reluctant because she's like, oh, we're friends, and you know, don't really want to ruin this. She said she doesn't really want to spoil the friendship. I'm like, well, you know, I've kind of liked you for a while. She don't know you're lying. You're just saying that to have sex with me. I'm a virgin at this point, so I don't know that these are things that people say. Genuinely, I don't know. Like, at the time, I'm 18, I think. Yeah, 18 or 19. I must have been 18 because it was Halloween before. Yeah, so I'm 18. I'm a virgin, so I don't know that saying things like, "Oh yeah, I really like you," is just a way to get a girl into bed. I have no idea, no clue. And so again, but then we start touching each other again, and she's telling me to do things. Like, for example, the clearest instruction I can never forget. She told me to bite her nipple. Right? She said for me to bite her nipple, and I did, obviously. And now, we start touching again, but then she's like, no, okay, I really don't want to do this. I'm like, cool. And then we stop. Here's the important thing. We stopped. Nothing happened after that. Nothing happened after that. Right? And a year later, an entire year later, I'm out with another friend up in Nottingham. I'm going to the cinema to watch Deadpool, funnily enough. Yeah, you, over there. To watch Deadpool. And I go with a friend from my old secondary school and a friend that I met up years after secondary school, but they both go to Nottingham University. So I'm in Nottingham, we're going to the cinema, and a joke is made about me being like forceful or something like that. Just a joke. And my friend goes, but we know what you're really like. And I'm like, haha, no, I don't. Oh, wait, let me go back. Let me backtrack. Sorry, let me backtrack. So after that night, in the morning, after nothing has happened, because we had stopped when she told me to stop, I said to her, you know, like, sorry for, you know, last night. Yeah, it must have been a bit awkward. She said, no, it's fine. She said, her words, she said, it's fine. It's cool. It's all good. And so, yeah, a year goes by. I'm with my friends up in Nottingham. And yeah, he's like, yeah, haha, we know what you're like. And I'm like, no, I don't. Can you enlighten me? Because I'm really intrigued now to what you're hinting at. You know what I mean? He's like, yeah, haha. I'm like, what about her? And then he goes on to say, yeah, you were quite forceful with her, wasn't you? And I went, no, are people saying that? And he was like, yeah, because you are. And I'm like, that's not how it happened. And from that point up until 2 months ago, I had been questioning everything because I know exactly what happened that night. And I know that I was not in the wrong. A little inexperienced, sure. A little awkward, sure. But wrong? Predatory? Assaultive? Aggressive? None of these words fit the description of what happened that night. And yet, for an entire year, and for years to come, there are probably people who now, who heard about that situation, think I am this crazy abuser, and having that brand on me for years was like a feeling of anxiety that I struggled with. I struggled to shake. Every situation I get into now, I'm like double questioning myself to a point where people are questioning whether or not I actually like them or whether or not I actually want to have sex with them, because I'm overly cautious about whether or not this person wants to be doing this. Because I'm like, in the back of my mind, although I know I was not in the wrong on that day, because I had this accusation, and because of what we're told as a society to always believe the victim until proven, or like we're just as a society, when situations like this come about, it's always said, oh, believe the victim, because you know it's usually a celebrity and they have leverage, they have lawyers, money, they can make things go away really quickly. And so it's always a bit up in the air about whether or not people are actually doing what they're being accused of. And therefore we should side with the victim because of the damage it can cause to the victim, right? And that makes sense. So from that perspective, I was now second guessing myself whether or not I had actually caused mental damage to this person for years. I'm like, she thinks I'm a demon, she thinks this, she thinks that, but then I'm like, but nothing really happened though, did it? Because I remember what happened. And then I'm like, oh, but maybe I was just way too drunk to remember. But I have never in my life been too drunk to remember a night, except for the time I got spiked. That is a story for another day. But I got spiked with MDMA, and there were hours of that night that I cannot recall. Of the night that I got spiked. Any other night that I've gone out drinking, I could tell you exactly what's happened, because I'm not that type of person to think that going out and forgetting my night is a good time. And I'm sorry if you're one of those people, you got some things to work out, because how could you know you had a good time if you don't remember what you did? You know what I mean? So I know what happened that night. And yet I'm second guessing myself because we're told to believe the victim. So for years, I've been gaslit to believe that I was this evil person, although I'm not, because we're told to believe the victim. I've written the crying wolf. What happened when there's actually a wolf? So in the story of the boy who cried wolf, his issue was that he kept lying and saying, there was this and that in the village and whatever, and people kept believing him, and they were turning up, and he's like, ha ha ha, idiot, ha ha, there was nothing there, ha ha. And then when there was an actual wolf, people were like, shut up, and he gets munched. I don't know if he actually gets munched, but the point of that story is that because he lied so much, that when it was time to tell the truth, people didn't believe him. So when it's time to tell the truth, you should always tell the truth. There is never a point where you should lie. Because recently, and I'm talking last month, this girl who accused me of sexual assault came forward and just said to the person who she initially told, yeah, about Rashad, he didn't really. I don't know why I said that, because he didn't really. So now I'm like, now I'm like, you know what I mean? My blood is boiling a little bit. And in fact, give me a second. Yeah, now I'm like, what? Huh? All these years, I have been questioning my own sanity. And now you want to come forward and say, oh, You know what I mean? You can see now that I've brought, let me drink some water. I was just as livid then as I am now. Because you can't just do that. People can't just do that. You can't just make up a lie that big because of the effects it can have on people. The scary thing is, you can, and people have. And I've been a victim of that. Other people have also been victims of that. And what's worse is that sometimes people like won't come forward and say years later, oh, actually, no, I was lying. They'll either forget about it, or they will just let the guilt eat them up and just never say anything, or they would say something fucked up like he deserves it anyway because men are and it's like, no, nobody deserves the feeling that I've had over the past 6 years of my life. 8 years. 8 years of my life. Nobody deserves that. I've been in so many situations where I have been so concerned that a girl is going to turn around and hashtag me too when I have done nothing wrong. And this situation, me saying I've done nothing wrong, there are some situations where people are like, I've done nothing wrong, when really what they mean to say is what I think I did wasn't wrong, but the other person saw it as wrong. In this instance, I've done nothing wrong, and the other person has admitted that I've done nothing wrong. But it took her 8 years to admit it. So I've gone through 8 years of trauma. 8 years of trauma over a lie. Because we're told to always believe the victim. And this is where it fucks my brain up. Because now I'm like, I'm not so sure. Why should I believe the victim when I did that for 8 years knowing the victim was lying, only for them to turn around and be like, actually, I'm lying. Now I'm like, you know, We're always told that mental health these days is just as important as physical health. And you and other people have fucked up someone's mental health. How horrible of a person would you be branded if you walked up to someone who was your friend and broke their arm and 8 years later went, oh, I didn't mean it. Like, nobody would believe you, first of all. And second of all, people would think you're fucking evil. You have accused me of something I didn't do and made me feel like a criminal. Like a deviant. A hooligan. A menace. Spider-Man in J. Jonah Jameson's eyes, you know what I mean? You have made me feel like I am not as good of a person that I thought I was. Not as a respectful a person as I thought I was. Based on a complete lie. And that's where this cycle of trauma comes into what I'm going to be talking about. Because what is the cycle of trauma? It is person experiences trauma. Person gets into a relationship. Person passes their trauma onto the partner in their relationship. The partner then takes on that trauma of the person. The partner experiences trauma of their own. And look, we're back to the top. Or back to the beginning. Experience trauma, relationship, pass it on. Experience trauma, relationship, pass it on. Because, let's be honest, people who haven't dealt with their trauma that get into relationships, their relationships don't last. Because guess what? You have some unresolved issues within yourself. A relationship cannot survive if one of the individuals doesn't know who they are as a person. A relationship cannot survive if one of the individuals doesn't know who they are as a person. And the only way to know who you are as a person is to work on the issues that you have. I'm not saying you need to be alone to do that, but you cannot get into a relationship with someone when you have this huge burden of trauma. Because all you're going to do is push that burden onto the person, bars, and then they are going to take on a trauma of their own because now they've been in a relationship with someone who thinks it's okay to hit them occasionally because that person in their childhood they got beaten by their parents instead of given a good talking to and an understanding of what is right and wrong. They just got licked down, and now that is normal behavior to them. So they get into a relationship now and they start beating their partner. And now their partner's like, what the fuck? So now when you've broken up, now your partner's thinking, oh, I fucking hate women. They're just all the same. They just hit me. And now he's going to go and beat somebody up. And then that female's going to be, I hate men. They're all the same. And then she's going to go and it's not just physical violence. It's also mental violence. There are relationships where, I can even speak for myself here. I've been in relationships where I do something that I find amazing to me. I was happy with my first year on Spotify. I had something like 300 streams, and then my second year I had like double that. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I've been in relationships where people don't congratulate me. They're like, oh, you could be doing better, or I didn't like this song. And don't get me wrong, they're entitled to have their opinion. But you're not sharing my happiness. You're projecting your negative emotions because growing up, they never got praised, or they feel like they never got praised by their parents. And now you're pushing that negative agenda onto me. And now I feel shitty because instead of being proud of my achievements, I'm thinking, I could have done better. And this is what I carry now. Now I'm carrying this burden. Or I'm breaking up with you, So it's one or the other. It's either I take on your trauma or the relationship ends. And this is what I mean. People who get into relationships who have the burden of trauma are just passing that burden onto somebody else. And that is what the cycle of trauma is. Experience trauma, relationship, pass the trauma on, relationship ends, person experience the trauma, and then we just keep going. And I say all of this to say, what about fake trauma? How fucked up is it that this cycle can be created through fake trauma? Because that is what's happened. That is what's happened here. One sec. Woo! Sorry. I'm getting a bit heated at the moment. I'm getting a bit emotional. I'll be honest. I'm getting a bit emotional. Because when you really piece what my life has become, I was accused of sexual assault a year before being sexually assaulted. It doesn't take the world's best therapist to point this out. It doesn't take a genius to point this out. All it takes is looking at the facts to point out what I'm about to say. It isn't a fucking coincidence that I've been accused of sexual assault and then get sexually assaulted the year later, the year after. And I've just now put one and one together. And that's why I had to pause before saying it, because how fucked up is that? Yes, I should have taken my own advice that I've just given, but hindsight is 2020. I shouldn't have got into a relationship if I have this burden of trauma. True. But would I be in these situations if I'm not looking at making sure that females are comfortable when I'm around? No. I'll be honest. No. Because a lot of the relationships that I've been in, all of the relationships that I've been in, I have got into them because I have this mentality where I'm like, okay, I need to save this person, and this person has something wrong, right? Now, I'm like, if you've got something wrong with you, sort it out, and then maybe we could talk about a relationship, because I am nobody's keeper, I'm nobody's savior. I'm only responsible for my own happiness. But because of that situation, and because I've got these thoughts swirling my brain about how females may not trust me around them, and how I might actually, maybe I did something wrong, and I don't know about it. So now I have to rectify this through life, so that the world can see that I'm not this terrible human being. So I'm gonna get into a relationship with this person, so that this person can believe I'm not a terrible human being. And what do you know? I get sold. And this comes about from fake trauma, a trauma that doesn't even exist. Because 8 years down the line, through no pressure of mine, by the way, I haven't spoken to this person in 8 years. I haven't spoken to in 8 years. I haven't pleaded my case. I haven't, lost sleep over it. I haven't, no. She just decided to step forward and say one day, actually, yeah, I was lying. So for 8 years, my mental health was shot for no reason. And the reason for the title of this podcast, Men Aren't Safe, is because I know I'm not alone. And the sad thing is, I know that there are some instances where there are men who have been accused of things they haven't done, and the girl hasn't come forward. So now this guy is just sitting at home thinking that, okay, maybe I did do something. And nobody's going to come and tell him he didn't. Because the only person who can fully confirm that is the person who's accused him. And that is the reason why men aren't safe. Wow. uh, what's that Lil Wayne bar? What's the bar for it? Not really, I don't see it's good. Jealous. Palace. Never say never. I don't know. Actually, I'm trying to go through the song really quickly, but I can't. But the bar is just to keep from crying. I laughed, and that is exactly what I'm doing right now. Because now I'm fully processing the emotions behind it. Now it's really, really hitting me. First of all, how I've really been affected by the situation. I'm gonna double check the camera's still on, because if it's not, yeah. So not only how this has affected me, but it's also very disheartening to know that there are other guys who have been affected like this, and worse, and worse. Because I wasn't accused of rape; I was accused of sexual assault, which is the step below. They're still both very fucked up, but you don't come back from these accusations, regardless of, and you don't come back from accusations like this. There are people whose careers have been ruined, and for good reason. If they have been correctly accused of sexual assault and rape, then by all means their careers should be over, because it's a terrible, terrible act, and you don't deserve anybody's sympathy. You deserve a second chance, because I believe everybody deserves a second chance. But you have to work really fucking hard for anybody to see you as anything other than a rapist. These are things you don't come back from. These are things you can't justify. In certain cases, things like murder, you can justify murder. Let's say there's somebody who's broken into your house, he's got like a knife to one of your loved ones, and the only way to save that loved one is to pop him in the head. People will be like, okay, cool, you're not a terrible human being. You were faced with a choice. Things like rape and sexual assault, it is your choice. That is your choice. And you don't come back from things like this. I keep repeating this because it took years for me to be even okay with the situation. Only to find there was nothing for me to be processing, nothing for me to be getting over. And if there's anybody else out there who is going through or went through what I've gone through, please seek help. I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't seek help from friends, from my therapist, from my family. Uh, I know I'm emotional right now, but emotions are okay. Uh, these aren't. This isn't like a cry for help. This is just a regular cry. Seek help. Everybody needs help every now and again. And if you were in my situation and you know with your whole heart you did nothing wrong, talk to somebody about it. Because I didn't talk to a lot of people about it. And if I talked to more people, I talked to a couple of people. If I talked to more people about it, I would have been in a better situation. I wouldn't be crying in my chair 8 years later about it, for sure. Um, this is pretty much what I have to say about the cycle of trauma. I will talk about the cycle of trauma a lot more because I have unfortunately been through a lot of shitty situations. As you can tell, I've got the hashtag #MeToo episode, and now I've got this, and there's more. There is more. So, without further ado, adieu. It's a weird word, adieu. I love saying it because it's spelled so stupidly. The English language is, and forever will be, a terrible. 1 second. A terrible language made by degenerates. Had to be said. Without further ado, which probably isn't even English, this has been the Project Podcast. I have been Project R, and I'm going to go and eat food and make the Cycle of Trauma chart. This has been the Project Podcast, the podcast without our introduction, and I will see you. I will see you at some point